Before heading out on a ride, it's important to take the steps necessary to avoid getting a mechanical.
Even when you do, anything can happen.
In this video, we're going to show you the steps necessary to fix the most basic of all mechanicals, how to fix a flat.
Well, it looks like I've got a flat. I have a nail. So we're gonna try plugging this flat.
Well, looks like we got a pinch flat. If you're not familiar with a pinch flat or snake bite, that usually occurs when the rear wheel is underinflated and it bottoms out against the inner tube beneath it, causing the puncture.
We're gonna wanna get the chain into the highest gear so that it makes the wheel easier to remove.
Now that you've done that, it's okay to go ahead and remove that rear wheel and get started with the change.
Just unthread that to take the wheel out.
A great tip for those of you running through axles on your road bike is to make sure to put that right back in the frame so it doesn't go anywhere weird.
So there have been some really cool innovations in fixing tubeless flat tires, and today we are using the Dynaplug.
A proper tire changing kit, you're going to need a new inner tube. Make sure you replace the one that you just busted. It's always helpful to make sure you have a set of tire levers so you don't damage your wheel, and then some way to inflate the tire. Now there's two ways to do that. A pump is a little bit heavier, but it's got endless refills, whereas a CO2 is super light. You only get one shot at this.
So we've identified the flat. We have a nail here. So what we're going to do is we are going to use the Dynaplug, which is great because you don't actually have to remove the tire.
To properly change this tire, you want to make sure that you're keeping the rim and the tire intact. So go ahead and use a lot of care in this motion, but go ahead and take your lever and slip it under the groove of the tire, and if it's easy enough, you can generally get that tire to pop right off.
Pull out the object, which is the nail, and then we're gonna use the plug.
So go ahead and take care and make sure that any debris that's on the inside is removed when you're doing this process.
So now we have the plug in. I'm just gonna remove it.
Fresh tubes are generally a little bit tough to get inside the wheel or inside the tire on the first go. So you want to make sure you inflate this thing a little bit first. Now, a little tip is just to take your thumb at the base of the valve and just give it a little rub to make sure that the air from your lungs is going to go inside this baby.
Now that we've got the plug in, now all we need to do is rebuild the pressure in the tire, either with a hand pump or a CO2 cartridge.
Starting with your valve, you want to go ahead and get that in the valve hole and lift the tire over the other end. Carefully tuck the tube on the inside, getting it inside the tire all the way around. You can start opposite the valve core and go ahead and roll this tire using the palms of your hands and a lot of leverage onto the rim. Now we mentioned tubeless tires before. If you are running tubeless, generally this process will be a little bit tougher, but it's still easy to do. It's always best to do it without a lever if you can, but using a plastic lever is generally the best way to do it if you do need to use a lever. Now we've got our tube inside our tire, it's ready to inflate and get back on the road.
So it's really important to keep the sealant fresh at least once every 6 or so months, because the sealant is what also helps fix this puncture.
You can use a CO2 cartridge with a proper inflator by threading it inside and then getting started with your inflation. As a side tip, it's always best to try to keep your valve at either 3 o'clock or 9 o'clock and the CO2 cartridge pointing directly up. It's better for airflow and helps keep this a safe process. Reinstalling the rear wheel is generally a pretty simple job. It's all the steps you've already done, just in reverse order. You want to make sure this goes in, and for general ease, go ahead and get that derailleur to go pop down for an easier install.